Drupal is a well-known open source content management system that is actually written in PHP. In this tutorial, I'm going to walk you through the step-by-step process on how to set up Drupal on a Linux Ubuntu server in just a few simple steps. So let's get started with the setup process. Alright, so the first thing you need to do is to check the IP addresses configured on the server. So run the command IP address list grep inet. This should then return a list of the IPv4 and IPv6 IP addresses configured on your server. So open up your SSH client and then run the command SSH administrator at the LAN address for the server. In my case, it's going to be 192.168.0.104. So I'm just going to press enter, type in yes, and then type in your server password. Okay, so I've successfully connected to the server via SSH. So the first thing that I'm going to do is to run the command sudo su. So this should then elevate my rights to the root user account. And then I'm just going to issue out the command apt update to just install some essential system updates that I'll actually need to complete this tutorial. So just make sure that you run that command so that you don't face any issues as you are doing this tutorial. So the update process takes about a minute or so. It just depends on on the performance of your internet connection actually. Once the update process is complete, I'm then going to appoint a custom host name to the server. So I'm just going to open up a new terminal window and then I'm just going to run the command sudo su. So I'm just typing in my Mac password and then run the command nano etc hosts. If you're using a Windows-based PC, you just need to edit the host config file for your Windows system. So here I'm just going to add an entry, so that's going to be 192.168.0.104, and then I'm just going to point that to Drupal server.local. So such that if someone tries to access the Drupal system, they simply need to type in Drupal server.local and not have to know the IP address for the system. So I've added that config, and then the next thing that we're going to do is to install the OpenLightspeed web server. We're going to install LSPHP 81, and also I'm going to install and configure a MariaDB database. So, and then lastly, I'll then show you how to then create a virtual host and complete the setup. So I'm going to paste in the command for adding the Lightspeed repository onto an Ubuntu-based operating system. And then I'm going to type in that command to install the OpenLightspeed web server with the LSPHP 81 package. So the installation takes quite some time. It just depends on the performance of your internet connection actually. So once the installation is complete, I'm just going to clear my screen here, and then I'm going to set a administrator username actually for the OpenLightspeed web server. So just type in /user local lsws admin misc and then type in adm pass.sh. Type in your desired administrator username, type in your desired administrator password, and then retype that password on the prompt and then press enter. So I'm just going to start the LSWS service by issuing out the command systemctl start LSWS. And then I'm also going to configure the uncomplicated firewall to allow connections on port 8088, port 7080, port 443, and also port 80. So finally, I'm going to install some needed PHP packages. So you just need to copy and paste that command to install the needed PHP extensions actually, because Drupal needs these extensions for the various features that it supports. So the next thing that I'm going to do is to install the MariaDB database server. So run the command apt install MariaDB server. Type in y and press enter on the prompt. So the installation of the MariaDB server is now in progress, and once the installation is complete, I'm then going to run through the MariaDB secure installation script. So type in the command mysql _secure _installation. So if you press enter, you should now see a series of questions designed to help make the MariaDB MySQL installation more secure. So I'm just going to respond to the questions now. And once that's done, we're then going to create a database for Drupal. So just type in the command mysql u root p. Just press enter and then type in the command create database Drupal db. So next I'm going to type in a command that will actually create a user and also grant the relevant privileges on the Drupal db. So just type in that command and press enter. So once that's done, type in the command flash privileges and then exit out of the MariaDB monitor to complete the database creation process. Okay, so I'm going to download Drupal from the official website. So just go to the downloads page and then just copy the download link for the zip file. So what we're actually going to do now is we're going to download Drupal using the wget utility. We're going to create a virtual host within the OpenLightspeed web server, and then once the config for that is done, I'm then going to show you how to complete the post installation setup process. So open up your terminal window and then create a directory within the OpenLightspeed server root. So just type in the command sudo mkdir and then type in user local lsws and then type in your desired virtual host folder. In my case, that's going to be Drupal server. So I'm just going to change my working directory to the Drupal directory there. And then I'm just going to issue out the wget command and then paste in the link to download the Drupal zip file. So as you can see, the download process is now in progress. So once the download process is complete, I'm then going to check the file name for what I've just downloaded, which is actually zip. So just type in the command apt install unzip. So this is the utility that we're actually going to use to unzip that zip file that we've just downloaded. So once that is done, you just need to issue out the command. Let me just clear my screen and then type in the command unzip zip. So as you can see, I'm just unzipping that file to expose the Drupal web application files. So if you just type in the ls command, you can see that we've got that Drupal folder there. So if you move into that folder and if you run the ls command, you can then see the web application files within that directory. So let me just clear my screen and I'm going to issue out the command chmod and then specify the other option and then specify 755 and then specify the Drupal folder. So this is just setting the permissions on the file, and then we're just going to the folder actually, and then we're just going to change the owner of the Drupal folder to the nobody user and no group group, and then press enter. So I'm just going to change the name of the Drupal folder from Drupal 10.0.3 to public. So it's a bit more easier for you to reference to that folder when you're configuring the virtual host. So finally, I'm just going to remove the zip file that we downloaded earlier. And let me just rerun the permissions and change ownership commands. And once that's done, we're then going to open up the OpenLightspeed server dashboard. So just open up a new browser window, type in your custom URL and append the 7080 port number at the end. Type in your username and your password and log into the OpenLightspeed web server. So I'm just going to delete the example virtual host. So I'm just going to delete that and I'm going to add a new virtual host here. So just going to set the name of the virtual host to Drupal server VH, and then the virtual host root, I'm just going to copy the server root environment variable there and then paste that into the virtual host root field. So that's going to be / Drupal server, which is the folder that we actually created earlier. So I'm just going to copy the recommended path for the config file, and then I'm just going to paste that into the config file field. I'm just going to rename the VH name parameter there to Drupal server. So you need to make sure you select yes and then select no on the restraint parameter and then click on save. Click to create and then click save once again. So I'm just going to view this virtual host, and then I'm just going to click on the general tab. So I'm going to set the document root here, which is actually, I'm just going to use the vhroot environment variable, and then / the public folder that we created earlier. So just click on save, and then I'm going to set my index file. So click on edit on the index file section, and then on the index files field, just type in index.html, and then type in index.php. Set auto index to no and click save. So once you've done that, click on the rewrite tab and then click edit. So I'm just going to set enable rewrite to yes, and then auto load from .ht access to yes as well. So once that's done, you then need to configure the listener. So click on the listeners tab and then click edit on the default listener. So I'm just going to edit this listener, and I'm going to set it to listen on port 80, and then click save. And then on the virtual host mappings, just select the Drupal virtual host that you've just created, and then type in your custom domain name. In my case, it's going to be drupalserver.local. So click on save to apply those changes. So once that's done, you then need to configure PHP. So I'm just going to click edit there on the external app tab. And I'm going to set the configured LSPHP to LSPHP version 81. So you just need to also modify the command there from 74 to 81 as well, and then click on save. Okay, so once this has been done, I think we should be good to go. So let me just double check the listener, and I'm just going to reload the Lightspeed service so that all of the changes we've made will actually take effect. So I'm going to open up a new browser window, and I'll just type in Drupal server.local. This should then open up the Drupal server installation wizard. So I'm just going to set my language to English and then click on save and continue. And then on the installation profile, just select standard and then click on save and continue. I'm just going to set the database here. So if you remember, the database was DrupalDB, the username was Drupal user, and the password was a very secure password. So I'm just going to configure those parameters there and then click on save and continue. The Drupal server installation is now in progress actually. So it can take about a minute or so depending on your server performance. So you now need to configure your site. So in my case, I'm just going to set that to drupalserver.local. I'm going to set my email address to admin@drupalserver.local. And then I'm also going to create a username. So I'm just going to set the username to administrator and the password there. So I'm just going to type in an administrator password. So this is just the user that I'll actually use to log into the Drupal system. So once that's done, you can just choose your location and then click on save and continue. Okay, so this is what the Drupal dashboard actually looks like. So basically, you have successfully installed Drupal on a Linux Ubuntu 22.04 LTS server. So that's been it, guys. That's a quick look at how you can set up Drupal on a Linux Ubuntu 22.04 LTS server. Please consider to like and subscribe to the channel, and please also share this video with your peers, colleagues, and friends. I hope this tutorial has been informative, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.